What's up, nerds? Nobody? You guys hear me out there?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Oh. Still got a couple kids missing y'all. So I'm gonna give a few more minutes. They're probably stumbling over the obstacles to entry. Not like you savvy types. Benna Griffin, you out there? I don't see your name. Ay, ay, ay. Hey kids, I have a tech question. If I minimize this screen so that I can see my email, I won't lose you, will I?
You shouldn't.
No, you'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see. Here we go. Shit. I don't know what that is. Aha! Two stragglers. We still got one more. Ben, are you out there? I see you, Ben. I don't hear you.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Oh, now that you are present, we can begin. All right, there's still one kid missing, but really I was interested in Benna, so let's go. Sorry about the obstacles to entry. I don't really know why you all have to punch in some information and then sit in a waiting room until I admit you. But you do, and my attempts to change it for the other classes failed, as you would expect from an oldie. But all but one of you have figured your way in, and so I'm gonna get going. I sent about 10 minutes ago, I used pass, the email option in pass to send you guys just a one-page sketch of some notes for today. While I'm taking roll, why don't you grab those if you can? And I'll take roll. I'm not gonna be taking roll after the first couple of weeks because y'all are all grown up and you can decide whether you wanna come to class synchronously or at the same time as the rest of us, or whether you want to watch the recordings, the thing will always be recorded, or whether you want to come to class at all. I don't have any attendance policy, but check around. You'd be crazy not to come to class or at least watch the recordings. And of course, it's better to tune in when everyone else tunes in, because then you can participate in the discussion and ask questions and benefit from that. Yeah, I think we got number 5. But even if I don't remember how I began that sentence, ask around. In my case, it behooves you to come to class and certainly, or at least to watch the recordings. The reason is this: I'm lecture heavy. You have to know what I say on the lectures. You don't have to agree with it. You can even write against me if you want. Every year, a few kids write against me and they do well. But you have to know what I think. And you ain't gonna be able to get that just from the books. These books are difficult and different professors give different interpretations. The only way you're gonna figure out what you need to know for the exams is by taking in my lectures, all right? So although there ain't an attendance policy, you'd just be screwing yourself not to show. I have to take roll for the first couple of weeks because the university makes us do it so that they can find out who's not coming and hold his or her feet to the fire, deny them financial aid and all kinds of other stuff. Butts in seats. That's the imperative from the money men. And I play right along like a little lemming, at least for the first 2 weeks. All right. Miles Adamovich. Are you here? Miles, I see you, dude, but speak up so I can know you're not faking it. You here? Okay, You get marked off as absent, Miles. Meredith or Genevieve Albert? Albert.
I'm here.
Sydney Bender. Sydney. Ay, ay, ay. Tim Besliger, maybe.
Here.
Kyle Carlson.
Here.
Caitlin Sue Clarkson. Best name ever. Getting marked absent. Alex Sichos, maybe. I don't know. CYCHOSZ. What is that? Some Czech name? What do you guys do? Show up and then leave? And put your name up there and then split and go watch the tube? Devin Dalkey.
Here.
Grayson DeMichelle, maybe.
I'm here. It's Grayson DeMichael.
Yeah, I'll remember that on the 12th of never. Micah Garvey.
Here.
Ben Griffin, I see him. Logan Hackle.
Here.
Joe Hughes.
Here.
John Hudson.
Present.
Very funny. Lucas Jensen.
Here.
Jenna Johnson.
Here.
Jesse Castle.
Here. It's Castell.
Okay. All right. Carson Kiesling.
Here.
Hunter Klepek.
Here.
Ryan Kruger.
Here.
Braden Lentz. He's absent. Remy Maramable, you said,
Yes, here.
or not? Seth Martins.
Here.
Iris, maybe? Modica? Iris. Modica. Caitlin Niehaus.
Here.
Elizabeth Nielsen.
Here.
Kirsten Prom.
Here.
Amber Rhines.
Here.
Nick Shaw.
Here.
Jacob Scheffel. Christina C.
Here.
Sam Smith.
Here.
Gareth Spindler.
Here.
Shade Thompson.
I'm here.
Adam Welch.
I'm here.
Anybody whose name I did not call? Oh shit, I see Iris in the waiting room. Oh God. Iris Modica. Iris, can you hear me now? Iris. Iris. Okay. The hell with it. Now we can begin. If you showed up in the last 5 minutes while I was taking roll, I told the rest of the folks that I'll take the role for the first couple of weeks because I got to university requirement, but after that I won't do it. You don't have to come to class. You'd be dumb not to do it though, or at least watch the recordings because I am lecture heavy. You cannot get what you need to do well in this class just from the books. You need to hear my rap. Only way you're going to get that is by watching the lectures. Doesn't mean you have to agree with me. You can disagree with me, as you will see. You can even write against me, and if you do it well, you can get an A. But you do have to know what I think. Only way you're going to do it is by watching the reruns or coming to class. So don't infer from the fact that I don't take role that you don't need to show. You do, at least if you want to do well. Okay. There was an emergency drill. All right, Miles. Let me mark you present. That's what matters most in this world. I know you were doing day trades, Miles. Alex from Czechoslovakia says something similar. All right. Welcome to Science, Tech, and Ethics. Let's look at the, let's go through the syllabus, all right? Bust that thing out if you can. And I will walk you through it. Then I'll give you a little lecture. Nothing too arduous for today. And we'll have our feet wet. What the blazes? All right, y'all, I'm looking at the syllabus. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, we can.
Appreciate it. All right. You know how a syllabus works. You've got my information up there at the top. There are no office hours, of course. I'm in Chicagoland, sorry. But I promise you, we can meet virtually by Zoom if you like, or by FaceTime, or by phone. My phone is Chicago number though, so don't call me. Send me an email, and then I will call you. If a phone call is fine, or if you want FaceTime, if you want Zoom, different story. But I check my email all the time. If you need something, or you want to make, visit, send me an email. Tell me when you want me to contact you and how, and I'll do it. All right. I'm going to come back to the course description because it's got some technical mumbo jumbo in it that you don't know, which mumbo jumbo happens to be central to the course. So after I'm a bit into my lecture for today, you will, I will return to the course description and make sure you understand it. By that time, you will have the little bits of knowledge that you need to do it. There you see our 4 hard copy texts for the course. Anybody have trouble getting any of those 4? All right, let's just attend to business here. I won't say anything about the content of the course for 10-15 minutes. Let's get clear about business. On the left, in the left-hand column, you have, of course, the days and dates on which we meet. Then to the right, you typically have a blurb, and it contains 3 different kinds of thing. In the first case, you have a single sentence identifying the topic that we'll be considering for that day. After that, in parentheses, you have the reading that you're to show up having done for that day. So, for example, for next time, September 20th, you are to show up having read 2 articles, one by a guy named Dennett, well, 2 by a guy named Dennett, and then a little handout by me called Dan Dennett's Materialism. All of that can be found on Canvas. And then occasionally, as for example, on November 15th, there will be something in bold type saying you have an assignment due to me. Again, I'll tell you how the course is divided up and say something about the content shortly, but let's go to course requirements. There are 4 of them, I say: participation, reading, exams, paper. Participation philosophy is conversational. You must join in class. That's true, and it's not true. It's true that philosophy is conversational. You just can't get any good at it unless you learn to do it on a dime in public. You learn to get a hold of an issue and debate it on the spot in verbal conversation. Getting good at philosophy really does require that, and that's why it's historically been the best major for law school. But Platteville kids, Ben aside, don't go to law school. And so I don't make you do it. I don't make you talk in class. Y'all are quiet. I grew up in California, went to school in New York, and by comparison, the Midwest is quiet. When I first got here, I was very surprised at how quiet students were. Asked my colleagues why and was told, well, it's Midwestern nice. These are some polite, pliant, docile kids. Come to find out, that's not correct. It's passive aggression. But for whatever reason, y'all are comparatively quiet, and I don't take it to be any part of my job to change your personality. So you need not talk. It's true that philosophy is conversational. And God knows, I hope you do conversate or enter in, ask a question, make a comment. Be much better for the rest of us if you do. But you don't have to, and no part of your grade will be a function of how much or little, well or poorly you participated. Reading, you must read carefully the texts assigned for class. There again, true and not true. You must try, unless you want to flunk. I mean, I'd be surprised if someone could do none of the reading and get through the course. And it's clear that it's always clear that the best students have cracked their head against the readings. But the readings are tough, difficult, some of them. So if after a half an hour you find yourself cracking your head against a brick wall, making no progress, put it down. Do some other work. I do take it to be my job to lay out for you clearly in each class an account of the material and what you need to know. But I'd be surprised if you could get a hold of that too easily unless you had at least tried pretty hard with the readings. Exams, 3, a midterm, a take home, and a final, all in short essay form. Short essay, y'all, you have to write little essays with thesis statements, full English sentences, full paragraphs with transitions between them and everything. You'll never get a multiple choice question from me or a true or false question from me. Philosophy is not quite that easy. And your other professors want me to make you write. Philosophy typically earns its keep across the nation by getting kids into law school. That doesn't happen at Platteville for some reason. I don't know why. There must be some sociological explanation of why Platteville kids just don't go to law school, but they don't, at least on the vast average. So we in philosophy have to earn our keep in other ways. One way is by making students from EMS and BILSA write. All these smarty pants's in science and tech can do 3 years of calc, but can't read your way out of a paper bag, at least many of you. So it falls to people in the humanities to make you do it. A midterm, a take home, and a final. All right. I'll say more about the structure of those exams when we get closer to them, but I'll say something briefly now. Just before we get to the midterm, I will send out a list of all the questions, the short essay questions that will appear on the exam. I will give to you before the midterm exam all of the questions that will appear on it. So that in principle, you could sit down and write up really wonderful, clear answers to all of those short essay questions. and then handle any set of them that I make you answer when you sit down to take the exam. You may not, write down answers ahead of time and then paste them in during the exam, but you could write up answers and then commit them to memory, and in that way guarantee your high success on the exam, so long as you've been paying attention well enough to write astute short essay answers and commit them to memory. Maybe you see why I do it that way. In giving you that prospect, I tempt you to study as thoroughly as possible and really learn the stuff. But of course, then I don't ask you to barf all of it back to me on the exam, only a set or subset of it. So if you're a gambling man or woman, you might decide, just to prepare some small portion of what we do and hope that you get a question set that targets that bit. But of course, it's not likely, and I'll design the exams in such a way as to make it unlikely that you get a set of that kind. The final will be like in kind to the midterm. Short essay questions, I'll hand them out to you ahead of time, and then when you sit down to take the thing, you won't answer all those, but some sets specified by me. And then there's a take-home exam. In this course, I'm going to teach you the 3 ethical theories that prevail in the Western world today. You got to know those. Not only will I teach you the theories and teach you the justifications for those theories, but we will spend time applying them to case studies in the science and tech workplace and real world. We'll spend a lot of time on that, and then I'll give you a take-home ethics exam. It will consist in some case study, which you haven't read yet, and the requirement that you cut it 3 ways. That you write me a long essay explaining how how the ethical dilemma described in that case would be resolved from each of the 3 ethical theoretical perspectives you've learned by that time. So there again, essay form, but less a matter of several short essays than either a single large one with 3 parts or 3 semi-large essays, each of which, as I say, laying out what you take to be the reasonable response from one of our 3 ethical theorists regarding how to resolve the ethical dilemma expressed in the case.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So like on take-home exams, are those on campus in the same time frame, or is that a different time frame?
Nah, I'll just give it like at the end of some class. I'll say, okay, I'm going to get off now, and I'm going to email you the take-home ethics exam, and then you're going to bring it back to me next time.
Okay.
As you will have just noticed, that means you could cheat. But wait a minute, no, it doesn't. The take-home ethics exam is open book, open note, so there wouldn't be any prospect of cheating. In the case of the midterm and the final, you could cheat because I'm not going to have you all show up on the screens and sit and try and watch you and look if you have a cheat sheet on your lap. If you're the kind of dumbass who wants credit in this life for something she doesn't deserve, go ahead and do it. But know that you won't deserve the grade in the class, and know that you won't entirely deserve your degree. If you're such a cynic that you think you don't care about deserving what you get, good luck to you. So there will be some prospect of cheating on the midterm and final, although I'm pretty good at tuning into it. Anywho, I hope you don't do it. I hope you have more self-respect than that, but there is a prospect of cheating there, I suppose. And a few chumps always avail themselves of it, even if they regret it. On the take-home exam, there's no such prospect because it's not closed note and closed book like the final and the midterm are. So again, to whoever asked me that question, I give it to you. I email it to you, and you bring it back. You email it back to me, or you drop it in Canvas a week later, You don't have to come sit anywhere on campus, God knows, and you don't have to sit in front of a screen whilst I watch your ass. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Appreciate it.
No trouble. Anybody else? Like I said, exactly what's required of you in these three exams will be clearer in due time. I just gave you a brief sketch now. And then you got a paper, just one paper, a 3 to 5 page double spaced paper on topics to be announced. It's due on the last day of class. And as you can see, it's nothing too arduous quantitatively or in terms of length, but qualitatively it will be difficult. It's not easy to write a good paper in philosophy, however short. You know, they are like legal briefs. You got to turn those suckers out like hotcakes in law school. And they are not easy to write, right? Because they have to be completely stripped of your opinion. You can't say anything for which you haven't provided evidence and argument. They have to be almost completely stripped of rhetoric. You have to identify a problem, typically an ethical problem in the world of science and tech. You've got to lay out the options for handling it. Pick one of those options and defend it against the competing options, just as a lawyer would do in a legal brief, or indeed a lawyer would do in court. You need to be about the facts and the facts alone. And you need to be able to amass evidence, not bullshit, not blather, not fluff, but real, exact evidence for what you say, and construct a logical argument on the basis of that evidence. It ain't easy, so don't be deceived by the small size. And again, as we approach the end of the term, it'll be much clearer to you what kind of thing I want in the paper. And of course, I'll give you a prompt ahead of time. All right, that's all I got for requirements: participation, reading, exams, paper. Any questions about that? All right, then you see the grading. Each of the things you have due to me is worth a quarter of your grade. You see the grading scale. Oh boy, now I have to say something about the grading rubric and something about the student learning outcomes. I will try and not be too bitchy about these, but I'm afraid I don't much admire either one of them. The reason I don't admire the grading rubric produced by my boss is that it suggests that your success in writing a philosophy paper or writing a good short essay answer can be measured in quantitative terms. That is to say, be measured by numeric measure, quantification, and that's just done. I mean, so for example, my boss suggests that part of your grade will be the result of my counting how many grammatical errors you have made, how many spelling errors, so on. That's not irrelevant, but boy, it'll be a tiny part of your success or failure. I can imagine someone writing an utterly clean paper in philosophy with 0 spelling errors and 0 grammatical errors, but have produced something of almost no value because it just lacks evidence and argument, lacks insight. Contrary-wise, I can imagine someone producing a grammatically somewhat sloppy paper that's brilliant. I hope you learn to spell and speak good and write clear. But it is not the most essential thing in philosophy. What's essential is evidence and argument, intelligence, reason, and being able to make a compelling case. That's what's interesting, not whether you're a good little schoolboy and cross all your T's. You can read the rest of that. I mean, the rubric otherwise is fine, you know, but it seems to me to be almost so obvious as to be empty. You know, the student provides a clear and logical thesis statement. Well, no kidding. Student thoughtfully defines the issue or question, shows an in-depth understanding of course. But I mean, you know, does that need to be said? In any discipline, of course, to do well would mean you'd have to think straight and you'd have to have a rich understanding. You get the idea. The demand for rubrics of this kind and for student learning outcomes, I understand. Taxpayers, maybe 15 years ago, taxpayers, at least in Wisconsin, became sick of paying out tax money for what they increasingly worried was schlock in higher education. And in particular, I think in the humanities, of which philosophy is a member, and the liberal arts, right? There's no worry about the quality of education in EMS, mathematics, science. Those disciplines are obviously successful. Science achieves regular and cumulative results because of the scientific method. Most mathematicians, as I understand it, largely agree on what constitutes a successful proof. And in the technical disciplines or the applied sciences like engineering, you have the same thing. Perhaps the degree of exactitude is less than that in the natural sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, and their surrogates, but still, in both the natural scientific and applied scientific disciplines, you have reliable work, right? That's why engineers are paid so much money. The bridges stay up. What counts as success in the social sciences, which are less rigorous, and in the humanities, which have an entirely different kind of rigor from that even aimed at in the social sciences. In the humanities and the arts, different story. It's less clear what counts as successful effort, and a lot of bullshit peeks its nose in the tent. Indeed, my own opinion is that work done in the social sciences and in the humanities these days is often not of the highest quality, and ought to be required to justify itself, ought to be made accountable. I'll say it flatly. I think philosophy professors ought to be held accountable for the quality of their teaching. But I do not think that they ought to be held accountable in stupid ways. And I'm afraid I think that the standard ways laid out by the legislature are stupid. They are stupid primarily, it seems to me, for two reasons. One, their criteria that they specify are so broad as to be almost empty. Two, they imagine that the humanities and arts, that is to say qualitative disciplines, can be treated like quantitative ones. They imagine that the success or failure of an effort in one of the humanities or in the arts can be measured by number, quantified. That's dumb. Legislatures and average persons really go for this because they think, ooh, I'm being hard-headed now. I'm being kind of sciencey. I've got numbers. Well, that's soft-headed because you are eliding the difference, the distinction between quantitative and qualitative inquiry. Now, what a lot of people will say is, hey, qualitative, that's just BS. Quantitative means objective. Qualitative means subjective. It's just a bunch of people spewing their opinions. I promise you, Stu Denton, if philosophy were merely subjective or a mere matter of opinion, I would not be spending my life on it. I would quickly grant that it's not as objective. It doesn't admit of as great a degree of objectivity as do the formal sciences of logic and math and the natural sciences of physics and so on. But frankly, I think it admits of as much objectivity as the social sciences these days. And it has in common with the arts the special proffer of quality. Do you know what I mean by quality? It's tough to say what qualitative discrimination is. You know what quantitative measure is, measurement by number, by quantification. What is qualitative measure? Is it something besides opinion or guesswork? I insist that it is, and I'd be happy to have as long a discussion as you want about it if you call me up. But let me just try and give a few quick examples. There are indisputably great athletes in the world, aren't there? When I was a kid, Michael Jordan was the main guy. Who would it be nowadays? LeBron James or somebody. But I don't know about him, so I'm going to talk about Michael. Michael was unfailingly excellent, right? He could drive from the top of the key, wend his way through several defenders, and dunk behind his neck constantly, right? It was no accident. He was a high quality player. Now, the excellence of his play could be cashed out after the fact numerically, that is to say, in terms of statistics. But I promise you, that's not how it was achieved. There were no numbers in Mikey's head. Michael Jordan's a smart guy, as you can tell from watching that Last Dance documentary on Netflix. But he was never calculating numerically. He never began his drive at the top of the key by saying to himself, "Okay, I'm going to step 16 inches forward, rotate my ass to this degree." No, nothing of the kind. Right? Was it luck? No, it was excellent play. But apparently, the discernment that Michael employed getting to the bucket had nothing to do with quantification, nothing to do with measured by number. His discrimination was rather qualitative. That's just proof that there's such a thing as greater or lesser success in a qualitative discipline. Same thing in music. When I was a kid, the big band was Led Zeppelin, a bunch of crude, dummy misogynists. But I still have all those guitar solos in my head because Jimmy Page, however sloppy, was quite a good guitar player. He was unfailingly excellent at producing melodies or fills or guitar solos, which were fit to the tune. They were so fit that oldies like me have them ringing in our heads 50 years later. Now, there's such a thing as new music theory, and in some ways it's quantitative. But Jimmy didn't know a lick of music theory. The excellence that Jimmy Page, that's the guitar player for Led Zeppelin, the excellence that he achieved almost invariably had nothing to do with quantification, right? His excellent play was the result of qualitative, not quantitative discrimination. If some kid said, "Hey, qualitative is all subjective, it's all up to opinion," I would say, "It's not, and you know it's not, because you suck at basketball compared to Mike, and I suck at guitar playing compared to Jimmy. Those guys meet objective standards, and you don't, and I don't." Right? There's zero doubt about the possibility of objective success in qualitative disciplines. It's less frequent than in the quantitative ones, and it's harder to achieve, but it exists. And I insist it exists in philosophy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. I got A's at a good college. I could have written my ticket. I didn't decide to make a Walmart greeter's salary for the rest of my life because I thought it was opinion spewing. What the heck is qualitative discrimination? Well, the terms of measure of discernment are pretty vague. I admit it. There's something like aptness or fit, right? But that's correct. I mean, Michael Jordan was always able to find a series of moves that was perfectly apt for the configuration of players on the court at that moment. Jimmy Page was pretty nearly as able to come up with a musical turn of phrase that was a perfect fit for or apt given the musical situation. In both cases, the basketball game, the more or less improvised tune, you have fluid situations with constantly changing variables. The mark of the excellent person in a qualitative discipline is that he can navigate those variables and nail it almost every time. Has nothing to do with quantitative measure. If it did, some guy who counts could have been Jimmy Page. Some guy who counts could have been Michael Jordan. No, it's not so simple, frankly. Anyhow, this little grading rubric, which my extremely smart boss, who would agree with everything I'm saying, wrote up, is the kind of thing that we have to feed to the legislature, even though I do think it's so general as to be obvious. And the student learning outcomes, which I will now read to you, make the second error. That is to say, they seem to me to, well, I guess they make the first error too. They cast their net way too broadly. But in structure, they make the second error. They imagine that philosophy is a quantitative discipline. So consider the very phrase, learning outcomes or learning objectives. The idea is this: if you identify your goal ahead of time, you can proceed by some, precise or regular, precise or rigorous set of moves to achieve it, right? As in the technical disciplines, but that's just not the way it is. There is no laundry list of steps that can be performed by adult in order, and by virtue of which he will achieve the goal. It's not like that. It's vigor. You say something like, produce adequate evidence, produce legitimate argument. There really is a difference between adequate and inadequate evidence, good and poor argument. There really is. 8.5 out of 10 philosophy professors would agree about what counts as good there, counts as qualitative. But there is no technical means of achieving it, right? And yet we pretend that there is. We say, okay, we're going to make this kind of sciencey, kind of rigorous. We're going to really clearly state our goal ahead of time, and then come up with some necessary series of steps, which, if we execute them in order, will achieve that goal. It's just not like that. It is like that to some degree in the technical disciplines, although there, I suspect a lot of qualitative discernment is afoot, with very sharp people on the spot calling audibles. But certainly the technical disciplines proceed in that quasi-mechanical manner more than we do in the humanities, and certainly the natural sciences and their employment of the scientific method proceed in a more orderly, if not quite a deductive, still an inductive way. It's not what happens in excellent philosophy. And so I think it's embarrassing that we have to pretend otherwise to produce these businessmen and legislators who can't understand any better. Ooh, I am in a bitchy mood, am I not? It's after 20 years, it's taxing to have unsophisticated minds dictating to me. I'm not so smart, but for God's sake, I know the difference between science and philosophy. All right, the SLOs, let's read them. Students who successfully complete this course will be better able to participate ethically and wisely in a diverse society. Okay, that's true. But then look at the bulleted points. Demonstrate knowledge. More specifically, students will demonstrate knowledge of the basic ideas at the heart of the arts and sciences. That's too strong, right? That's what you do in all of your gen eds. The basic ideas at the heart of the arts and sciences. This is a humanistic discipline. It's not an art and it's not a science. So number one is either wrong or way the hell too broad. Students got to know some of the basic questions in ethics and the theories that come out of those questions. Yep, that's what we're going to do. But you know what? It's too obvious to be worth mentioning. What else are we going to do in an ethics class but learn the 3 theories of ethics? Oh, and look at the bulleted point, just in case you need a clarification. Distinguish between ethical and unethical behavior. Duh. God. Students apply the ethical theories they're studying to particular cases. Yes. We're not going to leave out the cases. Demonstrate knowledge of multiple viewpoints regarding ethics, justice, and other questions of human meaning and value. Yes, especially in a course which isn't just about ethics, but which goes beyond it to consider society like ours, right? This is science, tech, and ethics, not just ethics. So that one's correct. Recognize the impacts of science and tech on society. Okay, yes, but that's implicit in the title. You get the idea. These are, look, if the rubric and the SLOs help you, I swear to God, I'm glad about it. Maybe it only seems so obvious as to be a waste of time to me because I'm so familiar with this stuff. But I do think that it's people with accountant-like minds imposing their simple criteria on disciplines which don't admit of that kind of measure. All right, any comments, questions, objections? If any of you wants to give me a run for my money on any of that, I'd be happy to entertain it briefly. Oh, Midwestern quiet. I know, you're not nice. You're sitting there thinking, spit blood, old man. But that's just fine with me. All right, so I done took you through the whole syllabus, eh? Any questions about business then? Requirements, anything of that kind? Can you all hear me out there?
Yeah.
We can.
Appreciate it. All right, I'm still not gonna take you through the course description because I haven't given you the mini lecture yet, but I promise after I do, we'll go back to the course description. And I don't want to tell you immediately anything about the text because you have to know what we're up to in the course before my account of those texts is going to mean anything to you. Note this, that the syllabus, that our little schedule, our itinerary is divided into 3 parts, given title questions in bold. So on the first page of that syllabus after our meeting today, you see the question in bold: can science explain intelligence? Then on the next page, you see a second question: can tech replicate intelligence? Then you see a third question: what are the ethical risks of trying to replicate intelligence? Those are the 3 guiding questions for our course, and they correspond to the 3 words in our title: science, tech, and ethics. In other words, I mean, the truth is we'll be talking about science, tech, and ethics all the time throughout the whole of the course. But science will receive the emphasis in the first third of our course. Tech will receive the emphasis, or the emphasis, as Mike Meyer says, in the second part of the course. And ethics will receive the greatest emphasis in the third part of the course. More explicitly, we will be talking about the mind, about intelligence. And the first question we'll ask is to do with science. Can science explain the mind? You might think, well, of course it can. Science can explain anything, but it's a hugely contested issue. If you think science can explain the mind, then you're very likely to think that tech can make a mind, that there's such a thing as AI, artificial intelligence, that people can slap together a mind using plastic and metal and electrical current, in a computer, in a smartphone. You might be sure that can happen, but again, it's quite a contested thing. So in the first part of the course, we'll ask and try and answer the question, can science explain the mind? Can science explain intelligence? Maybe it can, maybe it can't. We'll consider arguments for both sides. In the second part of the course, we'll ask the question, can technology make a mind? Can technology replicate intelligence? Can we make a mind in a box? And we'll consider arguments both ways. Then in the third and final part of the course, we'll ask the question, should we try and make a mind in a box? Should we try and do artificial intelligence? The word artificial and artificial intelligence, by the way, doesn't mean fake. It just means synthetic, right? So when people are talking about artificial intelligence, at least the big shots, they're typically talking about real intelligence, genuine intelligence, the real article. It's just not natural intelligence, such as you and I possess. It's artificial intelligence. It's not the kind of intelligence that is discovered in nature, in the human being. It's the kind of intelligence that is manufactured by human beings, right? Through artifice. In this course, we're only going to be interested in the version of AI where the word artificial means synthetic but real. So first part of the course, can science make a mind? Second, can science explain the mind? Yes and no. Second part of the course, can tech make a mind? Third part of the course, should we try and do it? What are the ethical risks of trying to make a mind? And there we check out our three ethical theorists for help in asking and answering that question. And then we read a couple oldie sci-fi writers, George Orwell and Aldous Huxley. You might have got forced to read those little novellas by them in high school. Pretty damn prescient, if you ask me. Seems to me that contemporary China is practically Orwell's 1984. And I dare to say that the good old United States seems to me to be becoming perilously similar to society depicted in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. So when I say that those guys are prescient, I mean that they're still worth, their diagnosis is still worth checking out, given what's happening right now in the global science and tech powers of China and the US. All right, so this is a class in science, tech, and ethics. The science that we're going to check out is basically AI, right? Cognitive science, artificial intelligence. Sorry, that's wrong. The science that we're going to check out is I suppose neuroscience. And we're going to check this stuff out briefly. We're going to look at the ways in which empirical psychology and neuroscience, those sciences, purport to explain the mind. I'll say it again. The science in this course that we're going to check out is the science of the mind, the natural science of the mind, empirical psych, neuroscience, brain science. The tech that we're going to check out is AI, right? The attempt to make an artificial mind or an artificial intelligence by technical means. And the ethics that we're going to check out is the standard three approaches that you get in the Western world today. You might think that everybody agrees how to figure out if something's right or wrong. They don't. They disagree like crazy. And even in the academic world, there are three different and totally incompatible theories about how to do it. So I'll teach you each of the three. Have you practice busting them out in order to resolve ethical dilemmas in real world cases. And apart from giving you an exam on that, due to me on the 15th of November, it'll help you to make your way through the novels in which people are enduring unethical shite of the worst kind. All right, so by now you have a beginning sense of what we're going to be doing in this science, tech, and ethics course. We're going to check out empirical psych, neuroscience, science that investigates the mind. We're going to check out the tech, AI that makes the mind or tries to. We're going to check out the three approaches to ethics, but extend those into the socio-economic political sphere, asking the question, how far are we going to screw ourselves socially, economically, and politically with AI? Are we going to screw ourselves at all? If we are, how badly? And how possibly we could do so less bad. I don't know if you know, you're young, so I assume you know this stuff. This stuff was all new to me. It was only about 5 years ago that I realized that AI is at least a potential threat. I don't mean because, robots are going to take over and make us their underlings. I suppose that could happen, but I'm not interested in that. We're not going to be tossing that around in this class. I have some more concrete ideas about how AI might screw us. Here's one. Automation. According to some smarty pants books, tons and tons of the jobs people presently do in the United States will be done by AIs within the next 10 years. Tons. And I'm not talking about, robots on assembly lines. Certainly that. But apparently, the AI programs and algorithms are so powerful now that they are soon to be given most of the work in the Western world in areas that you would never guess. In the law, they have AI lawyers now, way more efficient, way more cheap, way more fast. Certainly AIs will be driving trucks and working in factories and doing, I fear, most blue collar work, but even most so-called white collar work, or work that is done by fancy college educated people in offices like yourselves. You might think, no, that's ridiculous. There's no way in hell AI can exercise the qualitative discernment of a lawyer, the qualitative discernment of a cancer doctor. Those people, to make a good judgment regarding cancer, you have to have 20, 30 years of daily experience, don't you? No, you don't. Machine learning, neural network learning, connectionism can apparently diagnose cancer just looking at x-rays of women's breasts, can apparently diagnose cancer way the hell more accurately, quickly, and inexpensively than Yale doctors. And, so the sky's the limit, not just in the law and medicine, but in accounting, well, anyway, honestly, I hope that it's incorrect. As I hear myself say it, I think, that's crazy. That's not going to happen. Because of course, if it were to happen, if most of the jobs that people presently do in the Western world is going to be done by AIs, then there's going to be a second depression. And we didn't elect that Asian dude. What was his name? Who ran for president last time? Yang. Jesus, I hope someone could remember that besides me. That guy ran on this premise. He said, guess what? I work in the tech sector. Guess what? AI is going to take over most jobs. There's going to be another depression. The big tech companies, of course, are going to be making and installing and producing the AIs to repair the AIs, even though they pretend that a lot of new jobs will be created by the new AIs. The truth is they already have AIs made to repair the AIs. Long story short, the big tech companies are going to become inconceivably rich and powerful, corner the market on most industry with their AI products, and eliminate the jobs of most of us. Yang said, that's damn well going to happen. And any liberal political attempt to regulate them is going to fail. If you're a conservative or a libertarian who thinks that we shouldn't regulate the government because that would take the freedom of the entrepreneur from him, then you're going to have to just let Google walk in and take over. But even if you're a liberal who thinks, oh no, we can and should regulate the government. I'm sorry, the government can and should regulate big business, big tech companies in particular. Even if you think that, good luck trying. Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft they have market capitalizations that dwarf gross national products of countries. they're just gonna reverse whatever legislation you achieve or lobby Congress not to consider it. They've got teams of Harvard lawyers. They're gonna run the clock out on your lawyers, if you try and lobby against or legislate against this takeover, it's not gonna work. Some of the doomsdayers say. And the prospects of another 60s revolution where young people start marching in the streets, this time not against the military industrial establishment and against 50s sexual standards, but instead march against that's just not going to happen. People are so passive and glued to their screens that they're low-hanging fruit for this movement. Now look, if all that stuff that I just said scared you, remember, it could be a load. It could be wrong. I mean, the stuff I've read has worried me, and I have never been an alarmist person. Every damn 10 years there's some new technology which people worry is going to ruin the future, and it never happens. So I was not tempted to think that this worry about AI takeover was a real worry, but man, then all of a sudden I started to worry about it. Started watching documentaries on Netflix, and then read books. So I thought, you know what? I better do my science, tech, and ethics course on this. Even engineering jobs, by some accounts, can be done by AIs. So it ain't gonna matter to me. I'm gonna be dead, but it's gonna matter to you youngsters, in terms of employment and all kinds of other things. So I hope that the way I'm coming at science, tech, and ethics here is a little bit interesting to you. The way I'm doing that again as follows is to check out whether science can totally explain the mind. If it can, then no doubt we can slap one together technologically. And yet, if we do that, it could be bad news for you, or not. All angles will be considered, I promise. So that's what we're up to in terms of the 3 parts of the course and the content understood in really general terms. And now I can at least explain to you the texts. The first one, what computers still can't do, a critique of AI, artificial reason. That's the most famous book out there, arguing that computers can't think, that they can calculate, they can follow rules, they can, shift electrical current around, but they cannot think, and they do not constitute real or synthetic intelligence. It's all just artificial. It was tough to find a good book for that because there are more recent ones, but they're either insipid or impossibly difficult. This one is old, but it's intelligible at least, and it ain't easy. So it's the book that we'll use when we get into the second part of the course and check out the question whether tech can make a mind. The next book, Philosophy Reader, is where we're getting our 3 ethical theories, and then the 2 little novels are going to help us look into the ethics and politics and sci-fi worries of the oncoming AI regime. Where are you going to get your science? Well, we're not going to read any actual science. It's a philosophy class. I wouldn't be qualified to teach it. We're going to read astute and difficult essays in the philosophy of science. That is to say, essays in which philosophers who are also scientists try and prove that the mind is just a bunch of chemical electrical current, consciousness is just a bunch of neural fire, and therefore science can damn well explain the mind. All right, there I've told you about what we're up to in the course and about the readings. Do you have any questions or comments yet? Nary a one. All right. Typically, I will give you a 15-minute break halfway through our class. because it's just too much otherwise, and you can go to the John or get a drink or whatever. But let's go ahead and take that break now a little bit early because we're at a good stopping point or pausing point. And when you come back in 15 minutes, as I insist you do, I will give you a mini lecture on the 4 parts of philosophy, which you need to know before you can take a philosophy class, and which will help you to understand the little course description. So again, as I say, I'll see you in 15 minutes. All right, y'all, let's resume. You might just want to listen to this and not take notes because, as I said at the top, 10 minutes before class, you should have received from me an email in which I, gave you a quick sketch of what I'm about to say, the lecture for tonight, hit the high points. Or you can take notes if you like, or just listen and then rewind it later and take notes, however you like. What I'm going to do now is tell you what philosophy is and tell you what its four parts are. Since, of course, this is a philosophy class and you have to know what the hell philosophy is and what its four parts are. And happily, that will also help you to understand the course description, since unsurprisingly, the course description mentions, I think, at least three of the four so-called parts of philosophy. But I'll come back to that. Let me now get going on my mini lecture. Please ask me to stop and repeat something or explain it better if you don't understand it. I'm happy to do that, but you have to ask. I want you to fail in this course only because you didn't try. I will do everything I can to make these things clear, but you got to cooperate. All right. What's philosophy? In the nerd world, we like to break the I like to get clear about the meanings of words by doing etymologies, by breaking them down to their Latin and Greek roots. If you do that in the case of philosophy, you get philo and sophia. Philo means the love of, and sophia means wisdom. So etymologically, philosophy is the love of wisdom. That's right. If you named your daughter Sophia, you named her wisdom. Philosophy is the love of wisdom, not the ownership of it you see, but the love of wisdom. It's a lyrical, traditional definition, and I am sweet enough to continue to believe in it, but it's a bit out of fashion now. I suppose it would seem quaint or passé to a lot of contemporary philosophers, and so I'll give you a more current definition in a minute. But first, back on the old one. What is wisdom? It is difficult to say. Wisdom is not the same thing as intelligence. You can be terrifically bright, but not be a wise person. Contrary-wise, you can be pretty mentally simple and be wise. The Christian saints were most of them very unsophisticated folks. Many of them not even too sharp, but many of us would say that they were wise. Again, wisdom doesn't mean goodness or moral righteousness, sadly. I think you can be wise and not be a good person, because you can know what's important and know how the various goals in life should be ranked, but simply not act on it. I grew up Catholic, and I'm still a kind of very unorthodox Catholic. And Catholics read a novelist called Graham Greene. A lot of his novels have been made into movies. One was called The End of the Affair. And I recommend these novels to you, and I recommend that movie. They're usually about adultery. They're usually about people betraying other people. And he is a sickeningly good portrait artist of just that. People fail each other, sell each other out, and thereby sell themselves out. It's rather gruesome to behold, frankly. I think that Graham Greene is a super good diagnostician of the failures of the human heart. He's wise. He knows what matters and what doesn't. He knows how good lives go and how bad lives go. I think he's wise. I think he, knew the meaning of life, to put it very vaguely. I think he knew how everything hangs together or doesn't. I think he knew how to rank human concerns, but he didn't do it himself, shockingly enough. This guy who writes all these stunning novels, that make you want to run to confession or change your life. This guy was married like, I think 4, 5 times. Now, I don't know. I don't know what you think about that, but I myself think that he had to be an asshole. I mean, I don't, married twice, okay, maybe even 3 times, but boy, 5 times, you're playing fast and loose with, the human heart. It seems to be pretty messed up. Now, I don't know the guy, maybe he was such a genius that he had extra burden to carry. I don't know. But my point is, if ever there were a dude who I suspected of being wise but not good, it would be Graham Greene. So wisdom is not intelligence and it's not moral goodness. What is it? Well, it's tough to say. Something like knowing what it's all about. I mean, nothing could be more important. A lot of people have money and career success, but aren't happy or lying to themselves about being happy. Contrary-wise, a lot of people who seem like they shouldn't be happy because they're poor or in a terrible situation have a kind of glow of contentment, and it does not seem fake. It's tough to become wise, and important too if you can. And traditionally, philosophy investigates that. It's the love of wisdom. It suggests that you should take this seriously, think it through, try and move towards wisdom while you can, if you can. But as I say, that definition now has become passé or fallen out of fashion. I think in part because in this era of high science and tech, people do want everything to be precise and exact. And of course, vague talk about wisdom is not that. So I would say that a more current definition of philosophy would be the following. It's the rational investigation of matters of ultimate import. The rational investigation of matters of ultimate importance to humans, not to dogs. What is it to say of an investigation that it's rational or means to be rational? Is to say of it that it's based in evidence and argument. I told you before that good philosophy papers, like good legal briefs or legal defenses, are rational. They traffic in evidence and argument. Philosophy aims to be rational too. Philosophers think that you should ask yourself the question, what good evidence is there for this or that important belief? What good logical argument is there for this proposed line of action? Put otherwise, you could say that philosophy aims to leave out feelings and religious faith. To say of an investigation that it means to be rational is to say of it that it means to base its claims on evidence and argument. That is to say, it means to set aside feelings and faith. Now, feelings and faith may be extremely important to a good life. It's just that they don't come into philosophy much, or that traditionally philosophy thinks they should not. Now, that's not true of the medieval philosophers, the Christian philosophers, and the Jewish philosophers, and the Muslim philosophers in the Middle Ages. They thought that faith and reason worked in tandem, and some of them thought that feelings were among the most important ways in which we determine what matters. But on the average, I would have to say, throughout its history, philosophy means to be rational, and in that sense means to to largely prescind from matters of feeling and faith. All right, so philosophy is the rational investigation of matters of ultimate importance to folks. What are those? What matters are of ultimate importance to human beings? Well, it gets tougher and tougher to give any short list as we learn more and more about the divergent things people have cared about through history. And as we learn more and more about the divergent things people care about in different cultures. But philosophy stakes its name on the claim that it's possible to identify four things which have always been and always will be of basic importance or ultimate importance to human beings. What are they? Number one, truth. Human beings want to know what the hell is true, not false. They want to know what is the case. They don't want to have the wool pulled over their eyes. They don't want to be deceived or duped or tricked, if only for practical reasons. Farmers would like to know if it's really the gods who are making their crops fail or if there is some other cause. Human beings throughout time across place want to know the facts. Now, in the last century, even very smarty pants philosophers have come to wonder if really there are any facts. Is any real objective truth? Some of them going so far as to doubt that there is objective truth or fact even in science and mathematics. And more recently, in the popular culture, people speak of us entering into a post-truth era or age. Long story short, smart people and average people like us alike have of late come to wonder if perhaps there is anything like truth, or at least any truth that we can be sure of or get a hold of. Maybe there is a truth out there about most things, but perhaps we are each of us stuck in our own silos of information or stuck in our own perspectives. Maybe, maybe not. But even if that's what you think, in thinking about it, you show yourself to care about the topic. Dogs don't. Dogs don't sit around worrying that maybe there's no truth, or that maybe their source of media is biased. Human beings do. It's a fundamentally human interest to know what is true and what's not. Or so philosophy claims. Second, it's a fundamental human interest to know what's right, what's morally right, and what's not. Throughout time and across place, if someone kills your kid, you probably set yourself to killing him, but you also typically add to it the following claim: that the person shouldn't have ought to done it, that it was wrong, that it was evil, that it was bad, immoral, unethical, and that it would be morally right, ethical, to put that guy in jail at least. Throughout time, throughout history and across geography, throughout time and across place and space, human beings care about what is right and what isn't. They think some things are right and some things are not. Now, again, in the last century, a lot of philosophers have come to doubt it, and common people in the street have come to doubt it. People think, oh God, there's so much disagreement under the sun about what's moral and what isn't. Maybe it's all a bunch of old wives' tales. Maybe there is no right and wrong, really. Maybe it's all just a construct. Maybe, maybe not. But even if you think that, in thinking it, you show yourself to have a basic concern for the issue. And again, dogs don't. Dogs don't debate the ethics of capital punishment or abortion. Humans do. It's a fundamentally human interest, or so philosophy would say. Number three, the third matter of ultimate importance to humans. Human beings have all kinds of less than ultimate concerns, right? Getting through the day, getting enough food and water. Those concerns are utterly necessary, but they're not ultimate or basic in the sense of, abstract. By ultimate, I mean coming from the widest possible purview. So truth, rightness, also beauty. Human beings think some things are beautiful and some things are not, or are ugly. Always have, seem to now, and seem likely always to. It's why you hate your roommate's music and he hates yours. You think his music is ugly or stupid and he thinks yours is. That's why you think some architecture is appealing and some off-putting. Beauty is a fairly important thing to human beings. And by the way, in philosophy, beauty is not necessarily the same thing as prettiness or handsomeness. Maybe all pretty and handsome things are beautiful, maybe not, but certainly not all beautiful things are pretty or handsome. A lot of 20th century music is dissonant as hell. It's surely not pretty, and yet it might still be beautiful in the sense of sublime or awesome. Lots of 20th century art is not lovely. A lot of it looks like a scrambled egg disaster to an untutored person like me. But again, you might say that some abstract art, although not pretty or lovely, is beautiful in some deeper, stranger sense. Anywho, human beings across time and place seem to care about that. Number four, finally, human beings want to know what is real. This is related to the question of truth, but it's distinct. Human beings not only want to know what's true, they want to know about the nature of the reality being discussed. Specifically, people through time and cross place want to know if reality is just physical or if it's more than that. Of course, religious people from time immemorial have thought that reality is not just physical, but spiritual. It's not just what you can taste, touch, see, hear, smell. It's not just what you can get at by way of your senses. It's not just what you can bang into with one of your sensory organs. It's not just physical, it's more than that. It's spiritual or immaterial, as philosophers say. Real, but simply not concrete and tangible. If you're a religious person and a Western religious person, a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim, you believe in God, the soul, and heaven. If you believe in any of those three things, you think reality is not just physical. You know that reality is in good part physical, tables, chairs, desks, and stuff. All that stuff is physical, tangible, concrete, material. But if you believe in God or the soul or heaven, you believe that reality is more than just physical stuff. It's got spiritual stuff in it too. On the traditional Orthodox account, God is not a physical but a spiritual being. I know that in the Old Testament, Moses catches a glimpse of God the Father, as it were. It's the only God there is for the Jews. Moses catches a glimpse of God from the behind for a second, but that's not because, God was taken to be some physical entity lodged in space and time way far out past Pluto. No, God just took on physical form for Moses's benefit. Again, if you're a believing Christian, you think God became human in the second person of the Trinity, God's Son, Christ, but was not incarnate before that and isn't anymore, having taken leave of the carnal plane and gone back, as it were, to the spiritual one. If you believe in the soul, you believe in something that's not physical. If you have a soul, it's not in your tummy. It would not show up under an autopsy. It would not show up under a CAT scan. If you have a soul, you believe that in some hard to understand sense, there's a spiritual center to you. Again, not discernible by the anatomist. If you believe in heaven, you believe in a spiritual plane or space or condition, not a physical one. I had a student who thought heaven was Santa Barbara, California. And if you've ever been there, you might well understand why. But of course, at least on the traditional Orthodox account, in Western monotheistic religions, heaven is either a refurbished physical earth, a new earth, or something much more like a spiritual condition. Yeah, I'm just reaching for these as examples. If you disagree or your pastor tells you different, that's fine. I'm just trying to illustrate one species of more than physical reality, that having to do with the objects of religious belief. All right. So maybe there's spirit, there's certainly physical stuff. Maybe there's spiritual stuff too. What's real? Humans want to know, right? Throughout time and across place, they have wanted to know, do want to know, will want to know, right? Because it makes a big old difference for your life. If reality is just physical stuff, you might live one way. If reality is also spiritual, you might live or think you should live another way. It's quite an important topic. All right. Like I say, those are the four ultimate concerns of human beings, the matters of ultimate import for human beings by comparison with other mammals: truth, rightness, beauty, and nature of reality. Any questions about that? To understand my definition of philosophy: rational investigation of matters of ultimate importance. That is to say, an investigation based in evidence and argument, less so feeling and faith, and a rational investigation of four matters: truth, rightness, beauty, and the nature of reality. Questiones about that? All right. Now I got to tell you about the four parts of philosophy. I've told you what philosophy is, but I have to tell you about its four parts. And happily, they correspond to those four basic human interests. Anytime you're thinking philosophically, you're attempting to think rationally about truth, rightness, beauty, or ultimate reality. And so you are engaging in one or the other of four different kinds of inquiry. Anytime you're doing philosophy, then you're operating in one or the other of four parts, if you like. And not only do they correspond to the four basic interests that philosophy identifies among human beings, they have names. I'll give you the names. The part of philosophy that corresponds to the human interest in truth is called epistemology. 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 I'll do the etymology. Episteme in Greek means knowledge, and logos in Greek means study of. So epistemology is the study of knowledge or the theory of knowledge. It's that part of philosophy that corresponds to the human concern for truth. And in epistemology, in that first part of philosophy, philosophers ask and try and answer the question, what, if anything, can we know? What, if anything, can we know to be true? And if we can know some things to be true, how do we do it? What are the criteria that have to be met? What are the standards that have to be fulfilled before you can claim to know fact? You see what an important topic this is. People disagree like crazy about what is the case, don't they? It would be nice to determine how to figure it out, wouldn't it? It would be nice to know what the criterion of truth is. What standards must be met before someone is in a position to legitimately claim to know the truth regarding some matter. In that first part of philosophy, philosophers try and figure it out. So I'll say it again. In the first part of philosophy called epistemology, philosophers ask and try and answer the questions, what, if anything, can we know? And if we can know some stuff, how do we do it? What criteria have to be met? What standards have to be fulfilled? That parenthetical, if anything, has to be in there because, of course, some people today think that we can't know a damn thing. We have to ask, what, if anything, can we know to be true? Because some people, skeptics, doubters, are going to argue that we can't know a damn thing. Brilliantly smart people at Princeton write 300-page books arguing that you can't know a single thing. I think they're too smart for their own good. And in fact, I'm being unreasonable, but it's a different topic. All right. Second part of philosophy is called ethics. And it corresponds to the basic human interest in right and wrong, good and bad, moral and immoral, ethical and unethical. In that part of philosophy called ethics, philosophers ask and try and answer the question, what, if anything, is morally right? And if some stuff is, how do we know? What, if anything, maybe nothing's morally right. Maybe it's all just a construct or a bunch of opinion slinging. What, if anything, is really and truly morally right? And if some stuff is, how do we know? How do we tell? What criteria have to be fulfilled? What standards have to be met before you can claim to know something's wrong? People disagree like crazy about right and wrong, don't they? Probably in your own family, you have big old disagreements about what is right and what's wrong. It would be nice to know if some things really and truly are right and some are wrong, wouldn't it? And it would be nice to learn how to tell. That's what philosophers are trying to figure out in the part of philosophy called ethics. Any questions yet? All right, the third part of philosophy, the one corresponding to the basic human interest in beauty, is called aesthetics. AESTHETICS. Aesthetics have to do with beauty. Maybe you've heard someone say, I like your aesthetic, man. He means your look or your decor in your apartment. aesthesis in Greek means perception or sensation. And it's usually by exercising your senses that you tune into beauty, isn't it? Use your sense of hearing to tune into beautiful or ugly music, your sense of taste, your tongue to tune into beautiful food or fine cuisine or disgusting food, your sense of smell to take in the bouquet of flowers or the bouquet of the wine, your sense of sight to see the beautiful painting or the beautiful face, and your sense of touch, to do a sculpture or other tactile stuff. So your senses, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, hearing, are typically the part of yourself that you employ in order to tune into what's beautiful or lovely or appealing or not. For that reason, it's aesthesis, by way of which we investigate beauty, or aesthetics in English. In aesthetics, in that part of philosophy called aesthetics, philosophers ask and try and answer the question, what, if anything, is truly beautiful or ugly? And if so, how do we tell? Again, we have to have the parenthetical. Maybe beauty is just in the eye of the beholder. Maybe there really is no truth about what's beautiful and what's ugly. Maybe it's all a construct, totally relative to individual taste or social construct. Or maybe there's a wide swath of legitimate disagreement about it, but that at the extreme, some things are incontestably beauty and some things beautiful and some things incontestably ugly. But however that may be, whether you think beauty is just in the eye of the beholder, as a character in a Shakespeare play says, or whether you think that there are more or less objective standards, you show yourself and asking the question and be concerned about it. And it's that question that philosophers toss around in that third part of philosophy called aesthetics. Last part of philosophy, fourth part, is called metaphysics. The prefix meta means prior to or more basic than. So metaphysics is inquiry into ultimate reality or utterly basic reality. Physics is inquiry into physical reality. Metaphysics is inquiry into ultimate reality. It doesn't ask after physical reality, it asks after reality per se. In that fourth and final part of philosophy called metaphysics, philosophers then ask and try and answer the question, what ultimately is real? Is it just physical stuff or physical stuff plus more? Now I'm going to settle in a little more lengthily here to tell you about metaphysics, because it's going to be important in our course with all of our questions about the mind, right and wrong. Let me put it this way. There are two basic options in metaphysics, two basic camps that philosophers end up in metaphysics, which mark out their view on ultimate reality. The first camp or stance in metaphysics is called physicalism. And in that camp, of course, people think that ultimately reality is just is just whatever's physical. Physicalism, as the name of the camp implies, is the stance that reality is just physical. If something's physical, it's real, and if something's not physical, it's not real. So physicalistic philosophers take reality to be a coextensive with whatever the physical sciences tell us. If the physical sciences or natural sciences identify something as real, then it is real. And if they don't, then it isn't. Long story short, metaphysical physicalists answer the question, what ultimately is real, as follows. Whatever physics, chemistry, biology, and their surrogates say is real. Science tells you what's real. Nobody else does. Not social science, natural science does. Physical science, physics, chemistry, bio, and their surrogates. Social science doesn't tell you what's real. The humanities don't tell you what's real. The arts don't tell you what's real. Religion doesn't tell you what's real. Science and science alone does. Physical science. Why? Because reality is coextensive with the physical. That's the first camp of philosophers in the area of metaphysics. And I'd say, I don't know, 60% of philosophers today are physicalists. The other 40 are in 40% are in the other camp, and it is called dualism. First camp in metaphysics called physicalism. Thinks that reality is just whatever's physical. The second camp is called dualism, and as its name implies, it thinks that reality is dual, D-U-A-L, dual, or twofold. You got two kinds of things in reality, your physical things and more. So dualists ain't crazy. They know that reality is physical, but they think that there's non-physical stuff besides. Reality is dual or twofold, comprised by physical stuff and stuff that's more than physical. Now, when you hear me refer again to more than physical reality, you probably immediately think of religious objects, right? Objects of religious belief, because I said it before, because you'd probably think of it anyway. If you're a religious person, at least a Western monotheistic religious person, a Muslim, a Jew, or a Christian, if you're a Western religious person, or an Orthodox Western religious person, you believe in God, the soul, and heaven, and you are therefore a dualist, right? Because again, if God exists, God's a spiritual reality and not a physical reality, even if God takes on physical form sometimes. If you believe in the soul, you believe in a spiritual reality, right? Because it's not the same thing as your kidney. And it wouldn't show up to someone making a physical investigation. And if you believe in heaven or a spiritual condition or plane or afterlife, you of course again believe in something which, at least on the traditional Orthodox account, ain't material, ain't physical. It's immaterial, very real, but immaterial. Very real, but spiritual, not physical. So you might be tempted to think, okay, I get it. The two camps in metaphysics just correspond to non-religious folks and religious folks. Physicalists, of course, thinking that everything is physical, can't be religious. And and furthermore, anyone who does believe in religion or the objects of religious belief, God, the soul, heaven, can't be a physicalist, and so is a dualist. Now, while it is true that all religious folks are dualists, it ain't true that all dualists are religious. And in fact, in philosophy, you get very few religious people. I am myself one, or aspire to that, in case you care to know, but I hope you don't actually care to know. I think you should care about what you think and what you come to think in a considered way after considering lots of evidence and argument, but and living your life. But in philosophy, you don't get too many religious believers, and yet you get a hell of a lot of dualists. You might think that if people decry religion, don't go in for religion, then they're physicalists. Well, no, it's just not always so. You get a lot of atheists, a lot of people who hate religion, in fact, who are dualists. I'd say the majority of metaphysical dualists are irreligious. Do not believe in God, the soul, or heaven. What things do they believe in? What more than physical realities do they believe in? And because of which they're dualists? There are 5 of them. And they're important to our course, so pay attention. Here are the 5 things that non-religious dualist philosophers believe in, and which make them dualist, make them metaphysical dualists. Number 1, consciousness. Number 2, the mind. Number 3, personal identity over time. Number 4, free will. Number 5, right and wrong. You'll notice that God, the soul, and heaven don't show up on that list. So a lot of people who reject God, the soul, and heaven nevertheless embrace these 5, and because of that, they count as metaphysical dualists, people who believe in stuff that's more than physical. Now, you might not understand that because you might, when you hear, this list, you might think, what? Come on, that's all physical. No, it ain't. And everybody agrees it ain't in philosophy. So when you use the word when you hear the word consciousness, you might think, hey, I know what that is. That's neural fire. That's chemical electrical current in the brain, physical stuff. No, it ain't. In philosophy, consciousness connotes something that goes beyond neural fire. When you hear, I assume you know what I mean by the word consciousness. If you're conscious, you're experiencing waking life. You're awake. You're not asleep or in a dreamless sleep. I guess if you're dreaming, you're still minimally conscious. But if you're not knocked out cold, you're conscious. Consciousness is waking life or slumbering life where you're still dreaming. You got to be in a dreamless sleep in order for you to totally go out of consciousness. You know what that is? Consciousness is waking life. And of course, neuroscience can show that there's a correlation between waking life and neural fire in the brain. When you're awake, your brain is, the neurons in your brain are firing. But of course, correlation ain't causation. And it may be that the physical functioning of the brain, the electrical chemical goings on in the brain are necessary for waking life, but don't exhaust it. Everybody agrees that consciousness depends upon, the brain depends upon the firing of neurons. But dualists think that it doesn't just reduce to it. They think that consciousness, even if it is dependent upon the brain, goes beyond it, and goes beyond it into the non-physical terrain. This is stuff that atheists and religious haters believe. You'll have religion-hating atheistic philosophers writing 500-page books defending the existence of consciousness, where that means not neural fire, but something more, and indeed more immaterial. Again, when you hear the word mind, you might think that's just the brain. No, all parties agree the mind is not the brain. The brain is the brain. The mind suggests, mental functioning, mentation, which again goes beyond the physical functioning of the brain. When in philosophy people use the words consciousness and mind, they mean to refer to more than physical realities. Now, of course, physicalists don't believe in consciousness. They would say, so-called consciousness just reduces to neural fire, so really there is no consciousness. They will say that so-called mentation, mental functioning, the mind, it's a misnomer, really. We should just say brain. But again, non-religious dualists will argue that that consciousness and the mind are realities. They're just ones which take us beyond the physical, strictly speaking. They may not be able to exist independently of their physical origins, but so long as they exist, they outstretch it, flank it, don't reduce to it. Number 3, personal identity over time. You know what that is? You've got, each one of you has an identity. Each one of you is you, and not the person in the other room in your house or apartment. You're you, not someone else. You've got a certain identity, and it stretches across time. Even if you change a lot every few years or a hell of a lot every decade, still you're you from cradle to grave, aren't you? More or less. That's why you keep the same name. There is a you, isn't there? An inner you, the one who thinks and makes the decisions and is bored by the class. It's not for nothing that you use the first personal pronoun I. You think there's a you, an inner you, a center, a mission control that does the thinking and makes the decisions. And if you're like most people, you think that you are you from cradle to grave through the decades of your life, more or less. A physicalist would say, yeah, just like there's no consciousness and no mind, only neural fire in the brain, so is there no personal identity over time. That's just a myth. Why? Because physical science tells us that each of us experiences complete physical turnover every 11 years, I think it is. Did you know that? It's still a shocking fact. Every few years, I feel forced to ask a biologist once again the question, do we really experience complete physical turnover just about every decade? So far, they've always said, yep. And then I say, so you're saying that in 11, 12 years from now, there will be in my body no material physical bit that's in it right now? And they say, yep. And I say, not even DNA? And they say, yep, it changes too. And I say, well, then in virtue of what is it that I and me through the decades? And they usually say, I don't know. Physicalist philosophers would say, that's because there's nothing in virtue of which you're the same person over time. That's why huckster lawyers, in my opinion, they're huckster lawyers, have physicalistic philosophers and biologists and neuroscience come to court and testify that their boy didn't do the murder because the murder was done 12 years ago when he was a totally different person. I'm sorry, I'm a dualist. That just cracks me up. It seems like such obvious bullshit. Dualist philosophers will say, look, if it's true that we experience complete physical turnover every decade, so that we are literally new persons every decade, then personal identity over time must have its root in some non-physical part of us, because we all goddamn well know that we're the same person through the decades. Physical philosophers say, yeah, there's just no scientific evidence for that. There's no physical evidence for personal identity over time. A dualist philosopher will say, well, that's so much the worse for physical science. Maybe it can't explain everything. I know, and you know, and everyone who's ever lived knows for sure that he, she's more or less the same person over time. If physical science can't account for it, that's its problem. It's a big debate. Number 4, free will. You think you're free. So do I. Not limitlessly free, but free within limits, right? Each of you damn well believes that right now, if you wanted, you could get up and do a little jig or jump out your window. You're not going to do it, but you know you could, right? You can't fly with your arms once you get out your window. You're not limitlessly free, but within limits, you're free. You know, you're not determined, caused, forced to do every single thing you do. You're free to weigh in, have some say in what happens to you, aren't you? Physicalist and philosopher would say, sadly, no, that's a myth. That's an illusion. You're just a meat machine. You're just a bunch of blood and guts and sinews and tissue and chemical electrical current. And it is subject to the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology. Long story short, whatever happens to you is either physically caused to happen, determined to happen, or just happens to happen. You know, up through Newtonian mechanics, we were all determinists. We thought what happens in the physical world is determined to happen, necessarily happens. You know, 19th, 20th century electromagnetism, especially quantum mechanics, we know that a lot of shit just happens. Just happens to happen. Didn't have to happen. Just happened to happen. You know, it's contingent, not necessary. It's a matter of happenstance, not determination. So a physicalist philosopher who's current would say, look, anytime, you know, you jump out the window, man, or do a little dance, you either had to do it because of some, you know, necessary chain of causal events as prescribed by the laws of physics. You either had to do it or you just happened to do it. It was a matter of randomness or chance, totally contingent, not necessary. But either way, you didn't choose to do it. There's just no evidence of so-called free will. Again, the physicalist would say, where the hell is it? Is it in your tummy? Is it in your pineal gland? No, it isn't. No free will is identified by a CAT scan. No faculty of free will is discovered on the autopsy table. Even if you cut a guy open while he's alive, you don't find the free will in his navel. There's no free will, it's a myth. The dualist would say, again, you're just lying. You damn well know that you're more or less the same person through time, and you damn well know that you're free within limits. If physical science can't account for it, well, so much the worse for physical science. A physicalist would say, that's very sweet. What else do you believe in? The Easter Bunny? Santa Claus? Spiritual realities that have no basis in physical fact? The dualist will say, well, it does seem crazy, doesn't it? You know what's more crazy? Pretending you're not you, that you're not free within limits. Each side has wonderfully polite things to say to the other before it restrains itself and goes back to evidence and argument. We sure shouldn't hope to resolve these issues either in this class or you know, on any one of its meetings, but maybe we can make headway. You can get your feet wet, begin to see what you think. Last thing, right or wrong. Hold on one second. All right. Last thing that non-religious dualist philosophers believe in, that makes them dualists, that is, believers in not just physical stuff, but more, is right and wrong. If you believe in right and wrong, really and truly right and wrong, not just someone's flipping opinion, if you believe in moral facts, you got to be a dualist. Because moral facts aren't physical facts. Physicalists don't believe in right and wrong. You know, a physicalist would say look, imagine. Look, a dualist would say to a physicalist, look, you see that elderly lady walking across the street? You see the guy crack her head open with a brick? That was wrong. Really and truly, that was wrong. It's not my goddamn opinion. It was wrong, and you know it is. And the physicalist would say, look, I don't like it any more than you do, but the sad fact is that it's not wrong. It's not right or wrong, because rightness and wrongness aren't physical properties. And the only properties that are legit are physical properties. Consider your example. I see the physical reality of the elderly lady, and I see the physical reality of her getting cracked over the head. I don't see any physical wrongness. There are real world correlates of the words elderly lady and brick, but there aren't any real world correlates of the word wrong. That's just a bunch of talk, just in your head. Show me where the physical correlate is of that word wrong. The dualist would say, you shouldn't expect to see it, dumbass. Rightness and wrongness aren't physical properties. And again, the physicals would say, oh, here we go again. Spooky bullshit. An immaterial property of wrongness. A quasi-spiritual property of rightness. Somehow attendant upon physical events. The dualist would say, goddamn right. The dualist would say, look, if physical science can't explain the grounds for moral claims, that's a limit of physical science. The physicalist would say, there's nothing true except physical science, and you know it. It's just totally unpalatable to admit it. All right, that's it, y'all. Those are the 5 things, realities, which non-religious dualists believe in: consciousness, mind, personal identity over time, free will, and right and wrong, and which make them dualists. Physicalists would deny each of those 5, claiming instead that all that's real is concrete, tangible, or at least electrical, chemical, event, I suppose. All of that being one species or another of energy. All right, any questions or comments yet? It looks like one guy is still in the waiting room, but I don't see the option for admitting him. If there's some dude who has sat himself in the waiting room this whole time, he deserves extra credit. Sadly, I don't know how to get a hold of him or her. All right, y'all. Any questions, comments, objections? I understand what philosophy is, what its 4 parts are. You understand what the names of the 4 parts of philosophy are, what questions philosophers ask and try and answer within those parts. If you do, you're ready for philosophy class. And more particularly, you are ready to understand the oh so important course description. It's not important, it's boilerplate. My boss wrote it with intentional breadth so that different profs could teach the same course in different ways, while nevertheless remaining in confines of the description. what the hell does the course description say? Allow me to go back and check it out. It says the following. Course explores the epistemological, ontological, and ethical questions raised by science and tech. So epistemological, that's from the first part of philosophy, epistemology. Remember, in that part of philosophy called epistemology, philosophers ask and try and answer the question, what really can we know to be true? And if we can know some things to be true, how do we do it? What are the criteria? That's one question we're going to be tossing around in this class. What's the relevance of that question about criteria? Well, it figures importantly in philosophers' ideas about whether science can really and truly explain the mind or not. Physicalists are going to have different ideas about the criteria that have to be met before you can claim to know the mind or whatever than dualists are. Again, there's the word ethical in that first sentence, right? We're going to be asking ethical questions about science and tech, in particular, about the science of the mind and technology of the mind, AI. Is there something perhaps unethical about trying to make a real mind, like Dr. Frankenstein? Maybe it's exactly the ethical thing to do. And then there, in the first sentence, there's the word ontological. That's just a synonym for metaphysical. Onto, anytime that you see the word, the suffix logy, L-O-G-Y, that means the study of. So biology is the study of bios or life. Theology is the study of theos or God. Physiology is the study of, what is physiology? I mean, it's physical, but something I fear that I can't pinpoint. Ontology then is the study of being, since ontos in Greek means beings. It's the study of reality, it's metaphysics. So the course explores the epistemological, metaphysical, and ethical questions raised by science and tech. Right? Are there unethical ways of proceeding with science and tech? What criteria have to be met before someone can decide if there's a difference between a mind and a brain? What ethical criteria have to be met before we can determine whether we should try and make a mind in a box? Among the topics addressed are various views of science and the different metaphysical views that are behind them, various views of nature and human nature, and the different kinds of ethics that result from these competing epistemologies and metaphysics. That last stuff is just so broad as to be unhelpful here. Long story short, in this course, we're going to philosophize about science, tech, and ethics. Ask ourselves whether science is the only game in town when it comes to true knowledge, whether physicalism is the only game in town when it comes to metaphysics, and whether we can figure out what the right and wrong things to do in connection with science and tech are. All right. I will ask you again, any questions? Comments?
I had a quick question.
Yep.
For the readings this week, where do we get that material?
So the reading for, hold on, I gotta look at the syllabus. The reading, Jesus, hold on, screwing this up. I think I just lost the damn syllabus. Look, the readings for next time are not, your question is a good one, because the readings for next time are not in any of our books. They're not in the Dreyfus book. They're not in the philosophy reader. They're not in the two novels. They aren't chapters or books, they're articles, both of them by a guy named Dan Dennett. Where the hell are those, you would like to know? And it's a good question. The answer is in the handouts section on the homepage for our course in Canvas. So do me a favor and go right now, if you would, if you can, go right now to the homepage for our course in Canvas. And the first thing you should see should be a bunch of handouts. What's that?
No, it's not posted.
It's not posted. Do you mean, answer me this question, when you look at, as soon as you pull up the page for our class, do you see any things called handouts?
No, mine says there's no modules or anything. Like mine's
I don't know from modules. I don't care about those. I'm asking about the word handouts.
That is not on the,
There's nothing.
Now look, don't say almost nothing. Are there some handouts? I want to know if you see any
There's absolutely nothing posted.
under handouts, or you don't see a section called handouts.
there's not a section for handouts. And then when you go to the home, it says no modules have been defined for this course.
All right, you guys are into modules. I'm not. I don't know what they are, and you're never going to get one from me. If that's true, that's good to know. It surprises me. I can fix it in a flash while you wait. But the true answer, at least soon, will be that you get the readings for next time not by clicking on assignments. I think I misspoke there at the top. That's for papers and midterms and stuff. But by clicking on a thing called handouts. Now, if you will have patience with an old man, I will try and get back there without losing you. Hold the bus. Uh-oh. All right, y'all, I can't figure out how to do it. Can you tell me how to do it? I'm looking at the gallery, like all of your names. Can you tell me how to get from there back to the homepage for this course without losing you? Help an oldie out.
You know how to share your screen?
I want to share my screen. So click on share screen.
Yep. And then you'll have to choose your browser that has Canvas on it.
All right. I clicked the share thing, but I don't see any option for Canvas. Hold on. Didn't work, young lady, at least for me. Hey, who's that
Go
guy?
straight to your Canvas.
Say what?
It's shared right now. You just have to go straight to your Canvas tab, like under whatever browser you're using.
All I see at the top, I just see your screen sharing and stop share. I understand you guys are trying to get me to go to Canvas somehow, but I don't see the option.
You'll have to go to the school's website and go to the Canvas option on the school's Pioneer Portal website.
Well,
You
that
have
much.
the link for Pioneer Portal right in the middle of the screen, so we can see everything on your computer right now.
Yeah, I see it. Atta
There
boy.
you go.
Okay, I clicked it, but nothing's happening. I'll wait a second. Aha! Sweet baby. Okay, now Canvas. Okay, I gotta type in the real password. Oldie is advancing. All right. All right, now, as soon as I clicked on the course, the first thing that came up with, the first thing that appears is handouts. Do you see that or not?
We can see it on your screen, but we cannot physically see it on our Canvas. You have to publish it.
You see how all those green check marks are checked? That means they're published, right?
There's the basically do not enter sign upper right in the handouts darker gray tab. Do you see third one from the right? You see
Hold
what
on,
I'm
guy.
talking?
Hold on, guy. Right, are you watching me?
Yep,
Talk about,
right
you talk
there.
about this? Should I
Yep,
hit
click that. And then it should publish that group of stuff.
Thanks, man. Did it do it? Can you tell?
Yeah, it's in there now.
Hey, this is the shit. Old people and young people interacted successfully, at least by the old person standard. That's a first. Who was helping me there? Ryan Kruger?
It was a joint.
What?
It was a bunch of people.
Well, I was gonna give the guy who talked an A for the course without further ado, but I guess I'll never find out who that is. All right, y'all, so we're good now. Any other questions? All right, thanks for your kind patience. Take it easy and I'll see you next time.
Have a good one.
You too.